Welcome to Lead for Good, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. This is a show where the audience will meet and get to know top nonprofit leaders. Together, we will take a deep dive into nonprofit leadership, endeavoring to uncover and unpack the most important characteristics, traits, strategies, and actions of successful nonprofit leaders. Through this journey together, we desire to help you, the nonprofit leader, grow your knowledge and capabilities to lead for good. We want you to achieve your full potential as leaders in the sector. So, welcome to the conversation. We're glad you joined us today. Without further delay, let's join our host, Chris Looney, as he interviews yet another extraordinary leader who is truly leading for good. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to Lead for Good, the podcast where we explore the leadership journeys, philosophies, and practical insights of nonprofit leaders who are building strong organizations and advancing mission-driven work in meaningful ways. Today's guest is Lisa Wood, CEO of Casa Teresa, an organization dedicated to providing support, housing, and hope for pregnant women and their children facing difficult circumstances. In this conversation, we're exploring a leadership topic that often determines the long-term health and sustainability of nonprofit organizations, but is not discussed nearly enough: the value of being a relationally based CEO. What does it mean to lead relationally? How does a relationship-centered approach impact staff culture, board engagement, donor trust, partnerships, and ultimately organizational outcomes? And why are some of the strongest nonprofit CEOs also deeply engaged fundraisers who understand that philanthropy itself is fundamentally relational? So Lisa brings a thoughtful and deeply human perspective to leadership, and I'm excited for this conversation. Lisa, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you with us.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you.
Feeling is mutual. And before we dive into today's topic, I always like to begin by understanding the leadership journey behind the leader. So I'll start with when you look back on your own career, what experiences most shaped the leader you are today?
A couple different experiences. One was when I graduated from college, I actually had a dream of being a journalist and working with employees frontline, because I really thought their perspective and how they treat customers and so forth really makes a difference. And instead, while I was finishing college, I had the opportunity to work for a hospital foundation doing events. And that's where my fundraising journey began. And it was something very unexpected that I wasn't prepared for, but I couldn't not do it, as they say, when you think about your Gallup strengths. So that was one. Another one in shaping leadership, I'm just going to say a couple bad leaders help shape you as a good leader.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, that's important to call out, because it's very true. Was leadership something you naturally pursued or something you grew into over time?
It was not something I pursued. I always thought being like the right-hand person or even the person behind the right-hand person would be great. The thought of leading an organization was not anything I actively pursued. And yet, when the opportunity came, apparently the board here at Casa Teresa thought I was qualified.
And you were. Let's talk a minute about mentors or influential people in your life that help shape your leadership philosophy. Who were they, and what did they help you understand?
Probably the most influential mentor that I have and still work with, and who is a dear friend, is Winnie Johnson. I worked for her for 15 years at Mission Hospital Foundation. She was the vice president. I mean, when I met her, I was single, and by the time I left, I was married with a child and had run capital campaigns and stewardship and philanthropy and grown in a lot of different ways. And she really helped refine me and ground me and show me what leadership was relationally.
So good. Nice. She will certainly be honored by what you have said about her, and it's wonderful to have those types of people in your life. In thinking about Casa Teresa, where you are now, we know that Casa Teresa serves people in deeply vulnerable circumstances, and I'm wondering how that mission shaped the way you lead, or is shaping the way you lead.
Um, Casa Teresa, I'll say in the almost 11 years that I've been here, has profoundly impacted me personally and professionally. Personally, before I came here, I had a misunderstanding of what it meant to be homeless, what homeless people were like. And there was honestly a little bit of a fear. And being here helped me to understand it's not what did you do, it's what happened to you, and really understanding the journey and understanding the courage it takes for these women to get help and want to change their lives and make a better life for them and their babies. Um, that's just powerful on a personal level. From a professional level, that mission is, in talking to donors who just want to step into that and help, um, has been incredible. And I'll say the other piece to that is when certainly this being my first CEO position, they hired a fundraiser because they were running at a deficit. And I was congruently taking a master's program in nonprofit leadership and management. And that shaped me professionally as well.
Yeah, oh, that's wonderful. Um, Thinking about all of the lessons that you've learned through your experiences, um, and maybe not necessarily through books or training, but perhaps through your coursework, getting your master's. What would you say is your leadership philosophy, or how would you describe your leadership to others?
Yeah. So going through the masters as I was a new CEO, I very much connected with a servant leader and to be of service not only to the women that we serve, and again, I'm more of an administrative position versus a program, um, but being able to do that and then be of service to donors and to the staff and um, the volunteers, it's again one of those things I can't not do. Um, that's just part of who I am, and it resonated with me because I also it's recognizing that everybody is a leader to their own degree in the area that they work, and so therefore everybody has a stake in it.
Hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah. What do you think people most misunderstand about nonprofit leadership from the outside looking in?
I'm going to say one of the most obvious, what I think is a misconception, is that people in leadership positions of nonprofit just do this out of the goodness of their heart and they really shouldn't be compensated for it.
Interesting.
And that it doesn't really take a business person to run a nonprofit, as if a nonprofit is not a business. Our business is that we're in the business of serving people, right? I mean, so that whole mindset of this just out of the goodness of our heart and doing good, which we do,
Right.
it does take an educated leader to do it and do it well.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for calling that out. Well, I want to jump into one of our topics, which is the relational CEO topic. And one of the themes that consistently emerges in strong nonprofit leadership is the ability to build authentic relationships across every stakeholder group connected to the organization. And today's topic centers on the idea of the relational CEO and why that matters so much. So, when you hear the phrase relationally based CEO, what does that mean to you personally?
I'll share really through example. When I got here, Yes, I knew how to fundraise. And initially that's what the board wanted, was somebody to come in and fundraise. So they were very intentional about that. And there is a lot more to a CEO position than just fundraising, right? So there was a lot of learning. And to be quite honest, I was not very familiar on how to read even a financial statement. I just knew there was a lot of red. There were other areas that were not my skill set. And what I did is I invited in people, either who were current supporters or people, businessmen and women that I knew in the community that I had built relationships with. And I said, you know what? I need some help. I need some advice. And when I invited them in and they helped me to solve or come up with solutions and recommendations, they were part of that answer, which then in turn they wanted to invest because they were bought in at a deep level and very authentic, right? I mean, the willingness for a leader to be vulnerable and say, I don't know it all and I need help is compelling. And I think that's really the best illustration I can give
Mhm.
as far as being vulnerable and inviting people into that journey.
Yeah, yeah. It's an attractive quality actually, as strange as that sounds.
Mhm.
People want to be wanted, want to be needed, and you're giving that to them by calling on their expertise and inviting them to help you.
Right. And it's not about saying, oh, I need money. It's about, I need your advice. I need that expertise for us to continue forward. And how great is that? What an honor to be able to share that kind of a gift with a nonprofit.
hmm How do you distinguish between transactional leadership and relational leadership?
What I share with our team is how can we do a better job of making sure that people, whether they're coming here to volunteer, they're attending an event, that they feel connected, they feel engaged, they have a good experience. So that's one thing, is creating that warmth, that welcome to experience. And it's about staying connected. It's not about, oh, they sponsored something and then they move on and we don't talk to them again till next year. That's I struggle with anything transactional. And I think donors feel it too when it's just, oh, hi, I'm at your door again and you sponsored last year, will you sponsor again? Or oh, whatever, right? Donors feel the difference. And they may give once or twice, but if they don't have that connection that they really feel is genuine, they're not going to give again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And how does relationship-centered leadership affect organizational culture?
I feel it's similar to how we engage donors, right? We want them to feel like they're part of it and they're in that inner circle of helping us with decision making. So my philosophy is the same with our staff. It's, I'm rolling up my sleeves alongside them, right? I'm not going to ask them to do anything that I won't do with them. And to really be approachable. And I paused when I said that because I feel like I'm really approachable. But what I've come to realize too is when you have that title CEO, there are still um, staff that sometimes are like, oh, I can't bother her with this. And so I really do try to take the time to um, just, well, one, be myself because I don't see myself at this high level. But just make people, make the staff feel comfortable. And I think when you can walk alongside them and do things alongside them, it kind of takes that barrier down.
It really does. So let's move into a little bit of a conversation around staff and culture. In your mind, how do relational leaders build trust with staff teams during both healthy seasons and difficult seasons?
I think having open communication is critical because I think when the communication stops or there's a sense of secrecy, that's when people get nervous, right? And I think the more open we can be and the more we can engage our staff in good times and in challenging, and sharing that, hey, we haven't been meeting our goal. We need to kind of let's look at our spending and what are we doing? Let's be very mindful about it, and not in a panic way, but in an open way, almost like a family, right? We want to keep the family healthy, and having communication to do that is critical.
It's great. What are some of the practical ways CEOs can stay genuinely connected to staff, especially as organizations are growing?
So as organizations grow, it does get a little bit harder because then you have levels of management and everything. It can be harder, but I think taking time to make sure you're connecting with different people on the staff when you see them, even if they're doing, working in different locations or working different shifts, that, just letting people know you care is important.
Yeah. And how do you create that culture where people feel like you care or people feel seen, valued, heard, all of these important elements of culture? How do you really try to create that culture?
Well, like I do in a couple different ways. I check in with individually with people. I'm a big hugger. If you walk around here, I'm tend to give people hugs all the time. For me personally, I kind of joke around a lot. So when they see me being just kind of silly or whatever, and again, that's kind of the vulnerability. I think that there's a connection. We get sent reminders of anniversaries and birthdays, so I try to make a point to personally to say happy birthday. I hope you're going to celebrate, and just small individual touch points where I can.
I know there's a lot of discussion about emotional intelligence in nonprofit leadership. How do you see that as being important? How important is it, and what are the ways where it kind of becomes incredibly valuable to you?
Oh, I'll say emotional intelligence is always kind of a work in progress. Working predominantly with females, and I'm, I think there's just a little bit of gender reality to that. Trying to just be thoughtful in our communication and be able to have difficult conversations and connect with people directly, again, is important. So there's not a lot of, I'll say, kind of silly, wasted energy.
Hmm. Hmm. Let's jump into conversation around board and volunteer relationships. I'd be interested to know what you've learned about building strong relationships with board members, for example.
So with our board members, I feel so fortunate when I think about boards. Oftentimes, you have a few board members that are just kind of superstars, and the rest are kind of coming along the ranks and doing their little thing. And when I look at our board of directors, um, every single person on the board is supportive. They are engaged. They are either serving on a committee or volunteering or giving back in some way. And that's one of the things we ask. Um, the reality is, most of them don't like fundraising. I know that's shocking, um, but they don't. But what I try to do is, as I get to know them, is just kind of share, just invite people to an event, or invite people to come make a lunch, and or share on social media, just to get them comfortable with at whatever level they are. So again, getting to know them individually, why they want to serve on the board, what is motivating them, how can we connect with their spouse if their spouse is somebody who wants to get involved. And oftentimes I do find that the spouses do want to get involved, whether it's the men or the women. So that's kind of my approach in building the relationships with the board.
It has to be the case, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the type of relational leadership that we're talking about improves board engagement, it improves the effectiveness of the board. I don't know if you can point to specific ways that you've seen that manifest itself, but it is true, is it not?
It is true. A couple of the ways that we do that, I'll point out three specifically. One, we do board and staff socials. We do it at least once a year, if not twice, because I really want the board to have an opportunity to get to know the staff and vice versa, and what they do, because I think that engages both the staff and the board. We also have staff that will come to board meetings and make presentations. So again, they get to know each other. And the other thing is, we had a board chair before our current one who wanted to create this fellowship. Instead of people just coming for a board meeting and then leaving, our board meetings are at 3:30. They end by 5. We meet 5 times a year. And then after, we'll walk down to one of the local restaurants for happy hour for whoever is there in person and can come. And it's been really successful in connecting the board members with each other, as
Right,
well as
right.
with staff. And that's just been magic. It took a little bit of time to really take place. And whether there were 2 people or 10, we'd always go. It doesn't matter. It's like, whoever's here is supposed to be here, and we're going to get to know one another. And I think that's brought the board together even better, which has been great. So now it's not me holding the relationships, or not just me. It's our staff, it's the board members among each other, and the camaraderie has been great. And I think that's deepened the board engagement as well.
Yeah. Are there some mistakes nonprofit CEOs make when it comes to stakeholder relationships? I suppose what I was expecting maybe is you become too close or too friendly with some of your board members, and you have a hard time then delivering negative feedback or asking them to do things that um, now seems to cross a personal line when before it would have been normal in a professional situation. But I'm just,
Yeah,
guessing here.
well, I do think there are occasions when that can happen, or when leaders or fundraisers, either one, because you're building deeper relationships, right? But it's also remembering that we are not them, right? This is what
Good.
we do, and they are very genuine relationships. And I realize I'm also not their friend, right? We can have a close, caring relationship, but there's a boundary there. And so yes, I can see how that could be a pitfall, for some people.
Yeah.
And I think then it's a question of what is that motive, because there's a little bit of unhealthiness going on if that's occurring.
Yeah, yeah. It is tough. And it's interesting because there is that dynamic in the CEO board relationship where the CEO is um, hired by or retained by the board. So it's your
Yeah, they're my
direct.
bosses.
They're the bosses, right? And so how do you maintain a strong, friendly, supportive, engaged relationship where there's still that kind of tension and dynamic of boss or supervisor to employee?
Yeah, so how I've navigated that is more from a perspective that we work in partnership, and I'm
Beautiful.
right, and I'm clear and I'm accountable, and I have goals, and there's expectations, and I meet those. And in partnership, we work together.
Yep. Perfect. I love that concept. Um, well, in thinking about donors, fundraising, and external relationships in connection to this concept, you and I both know that many of the strongest nonprofit CEOs are also strong relationship builders, especially with donors. Why, in your mind, is that so important?
Well, for me, it's really important. When I first got into my role, I had the perception, and it could be wrong, but I had the perception that a lot of my peers kind of came up through the ranks within the organization because they were big organizations, or they were more programmatic people that moved into an executive director position. And they tend not to be as relational and as comfortable with donors as somebody who's kind of come through the fundraising ranks, right? And I think what makes being a relational CEO, and I'll add on a fundraising CEO, is that we are the face of the organization, right? We there's an expectation that we are being able to that we're able to share that passion and that mission, and be able to build these relationships in support of what we do. And I feel like if you have a CEO, it's kind of when I worked at a hospital foundation, if the CEO isn't actively involved in that, let's be honest, people at the donors want major donors like access to the top person, right? So if you have a CEO who's a fundraiser or a relational person, that connection is so much better because it because you're relational, right? And it just comes together so much easier, and it's again, it's genuine because it's part of who you are.
And I just wanted to continue on this idea of the fundraising CEO. Why do you think that's such an important sort of talent, and why do you think it's so helpful to have a CEO that is comfortable, well-versed, prepared, and able and competent in the fundraising realm?
It's an asset to have a CEO who's a fundraiser, because if you have major donors that like the access and the insider info that a CEO gives, and that CEO is a fundraising professional, then it's, I mean, honestly, Chris, it comes to, Lisa, what can I do for you today?
No, it's funny because we often in the hospital setting um, love doctors who make introductions to the development people when they come across a grateful patient, instead of saying, "Oh, well, it was just my honor to be of service to you," which is true, but dismissing their offer or desire to help is a miss. And
Mhm.
as is, maybe all like, just get some flowers or candy for the nurses or something, which is so nice and so appropriate, but misses an opportunity. And I feel like the CEOs that aren't thoughtful fundraisers or relationship-based people or not having that background in fundraising just miss opportunities. They miss
Well,
signals.
yeah. So as you were talking, it's like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's about creating a culture of philanthropy here at the organization. And again, I'll give you just a brief, great story. So I'd been here a couple of years. One of our house mothers, a paid staff person, got a call, and somebody wanted to come in and buy Christmas gifts for everybody. And she said, "Well, have you been to Casa Teresa before?" And the person on the phone said, "No, I haven't." And so she said, "Well, why don't you come in for a tour?" Came in for a tour, and I had the opportunity to kind of step in and meet this person and talk about something much bigger. And this gal's first gift was $19,000, and we didn't need gifts for the moms because we it was Christmas time, and they were all being spoken for, and people were already fulfilling their wish list.
Right.
And the point being, if that house mother who answered the phone hadn't said what she said, to your point, when you don't have the person or people that have that mindset, it's like, oh, some diapers would be great, or some Christmas gifts would be great. And so when our donors come to Casa Teresa, I let our staff know. I really try to engage our staff with the donors so
Yep.
that we're all in it, and that when that donor comes, they feel like they're part of it too, because
Yeah.
people know who they are. And it's like, oh, okay. Like we had a golf tournament, and we have our staff working at it, house moms and case managers, and the donors love it, and they get to talk to them, and like, what do you do at Casa Teresa? And they get to learn more. So
It's beautiful. Yeah, that
magic.
answer that you gave about helping to build and foster a culture of philanthropy is incredibly important. Um, But how does a CEO become more comfortable and authentic in donor relationships when they feel like it's being transactional or sales oriented?
Well, it's hard to describe that because that's not who I am.
Yeah,
It's interesting. So my mentor, Winnie, we did a lot of different kinds of training, and I was always the worst. We'd have to fill out these forms, and this is kind of what you do, and then you do this, and then you do this. And I'm not of the mindset to do a lot of research on people because then what am I genuinely asking them? I'm only going with one thing in mind where I can be genuinely curious to ask questions.
fair.
And I'm always amazed. And I think this is where that relationship comes from. When you ask some questions that you genuinely want to know, I'm always surprised people will answer them and then some. And then you have that chance to have a dialogue and be vulnerable with each other and share the mission and why is this important, and then they share why it's important, and it's like, oh, there it is. There's usually a reason for Casa Teresa why people get involved. They were adopted, they were pregnant at 17, they were, I mean, it almost everybody who's involved with Casa Teresa and all, the majority of them have a personal story. And when it's like, well, so what does it mean to you? They share, and I think that's where some of that just comes from. So when you can establish that rapport and you have that genuine curiosity and we're passionate about what we do, it makes it easy. And that's why when I see transactional fundraisers out there, it's like, oh, it's hard.
Well, and there are transactional CEOs too, right? So you
Yeah.
know when you're one of those, if the only time you ever talk to a donor is when you're asking them for money, or you don't really know them, and you don't really care to know them, all you care about is that they write that check and write it when you want it or need it and for how much you need it for, right? So
Yeah.
um, I
You
think
can't
the
do that.
only
It's just not my
no,
DNA.
the only way to overcome as a CEO that feeling that you're um, being transactional or salesy is to actually care, to invest in the relationship and focus on how you can steward that individual after they've made a gift or know more about them before you even ask.
Right. I mean, to how, well, I don't want to go off topic. I don't want to go off the rail, but how would any of us feel if somebody just came up to us and said, "Well, I know you have money. Would you mind giving us some money, some of it?" Or, "I know you support them over there, and we're very much like that. Would you like to make a gift to us?" I mean, I can't
Yeah.
even. I can't.
Or
So
even worse,
yeah.
you
So I'll
say
give
we're,
you.
we're
I'll give you.
better.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another example. I had a dear friend of mine invite me to my alma mater. And I thought, wow, I'm getting invited to my alma mater. I'm really not very engaged. And it felt like a high level cultivation, right? And I'm like, God, are they going to ask me for a gift or a planned gift? Because I'm of that age. I'm like, I don't know. And, and I thought maybe I should have asked, but I didn't. And I went because this is a dear friend. And we went, toured the campus and had a lovely lunch, and I just kept waiting for whatever the ask was, and it just was a great stewardship point or a cultivation. And then interesting, nobody ever followed up with me. So not only was I a little nervous because I wasn't invested on my alma mater because I just spent a short time there, um, nobody followed up. It was very interesting. So I just share
Yeah.
that as a point of reference that I went because of a relationship, but there was a little bit of a disconnect. I don't know.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
being there.
And a missed opportunity for sure, because you were probably inclined to do something if you had been asked, right?
Yeah, I
Or at
was, and
least
I didn't think I was going in, and then I was, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait and see.
and then I wasn't.
Maybe we cut this out of the podcast.
Funny. Maybe we'll see.
We'll
But
see.
do you treat community relationships and partnerships in the same way that you do staff and board and volunteer and donor relationships, or is there a difference?
Um, yes, I treat them the same. What I was gonna say, if there's some that aren't my favorites, I won't spend as much time with them. But
Fair,
at the end,
fair.
and I do say that in jest. You know what? How can I not have genuine relationships with partners that are we're all here to be of service, right?
Yeah.
My how I would approach things may be different than some of my counterparts, but I can still respect what they're doing and walk alongside and be of service together. Or how do we come together if there's a collaboration opportunity?
Hmm. Is there a particular role that listening plays in your mind in this relationship work?
Yeah, listening's huge. Because my background was really healthcare philanthropy, walking into the social services sector, especially around homeless, there was a lot of learning. And again, I was a fundraiser, not an administrator. So I really got to practice that skill a lot early on, and I continue that. I just met with somebody yesterday who has a dream of doing something similar to what we do, and I just listened to where that passion was coming from, and then asked some more questions and just kept listening because I could tell there was more that needed to be shared. So
Hmm.
that listening is critical. What do they say? We got two ears and one mouth,
For a
just
reason, right?
unfortunately.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's good. I often think that when I'm listening to someone who talks too much, and should be listening.
And
What,
all
what,
you're doing is listening.
yeah. Well, what about presence? I mean, this is such a fast-paced environment. You're pulled in a million different directions. Do you have any tips or tricks to, help a leader stay present and focused and engaged with the person that they're with?
Wow, that's a big question. So for me personally, because I enjoy spending time with people and I get energy from that, it's easy for me to have that time where I think I struggle. And again, just being open and vulnerable is is because that's what I love to do, and because I know the time and energy it takes to be present, and I want to be present. I tend to put that at the end. It's like, oh, if I just get this, that, and the other thing done, then I get to do what I love to do, right? Which is spending time with
Right.
people and sharing about Casa Teresa. Um, I know what I could use is better time management and organization. So I don't know if I'm qualified to share how to be more present. It's carving out that time, and again, I feel as a CEO and a relational one, it's what we should be doing in my mind first and foremost over all this other stuff, because all this other stuff can wait, right?
Yeah,
Because at the end of
that's
the
right.
day, if we don't have that support, we can't fulfill our mission anyway. And for those of us that are relational CEOs, the joy that comes with just spending time with people, to me, just feeds me and gets me more excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the answer. Time management. That's
So
well,
really, Chris,
such a good
who
answer.
can help me with time management?
Well, I think there's always a reason why someone might not be as engaged or present, and you might know yourself well to say, hey, it's time management, it's my schedule, it's being thoughtful about prioritizing that. And that's probably a big help to other leaders who need that reminder that it's all about prioritization and time management. So thank you for sharing. As we begin to close, I'd love to spend a few minutes reflecting on leadership more broadly. what advice would you give to emerging nonprofit leaders who want to become more relational leaders?
So I was really fortunate when I started this journey as a CEO. So for emerging leaders, I would certainly tap into some leadership training for sure. And and I say that because it's not just what you learn. It's building the relationship with others and building a network, I'll say, of support of peers. It can be lonely at the top, and it's great to have a group of people that you can, just vent to or bounce ideas off of. And again, typically when you develop that peer network, you have people of all different levels of um, tenure of experience as well as breadth of experience. And I think that really can enrich upcoming leaders. I know we have two development team members that I'm really developing, and they just got dialed in with AFP, so they can start building their own peer networks, right, and learn from others. So I think just having that, and then that helps for somebody who's not as relational, it will help hone their skills.
And what habits or disciplines help leaders remain connected and grounded?
I just, I think of people and I call them. I should have better habits, but I'm just being
No, that's
honest.
honest. That no, that's well, your habit is that you think of a particular person or a call you need to make, and you do it, right? You
Yeah,
don't procrastinate, you don't put it off,
yeah.
you don't forget.
Well, I think having time built into your calendar can truly help in being grounded and intentional.
Perfect, yeah. And what do you believe organizations lose when leadership becomes overly transactional? What does it lose?
Well, they're going to lose support. I mean, again, I've said it before. At the end of the day, I have talked with donors who have shared other organizations that they've supported, and they talk about the transaction. And it's like, and I've got haven't heard from them in a year, and now they're calling me again. And I mean, it's they feel it. They feel it.
They feel it.
and and
Well,
and I
what?
think that, and I think as such they reduce their giving, or they step all the way out, and people are like, well, wait, I thought they cared about what we do. Well, they can care about what you do and still not be engaged and not want to give anymore. Why do people give to organizations? They care about the mission and leadership.
Mhm. You got that right. Well, what
Mhm.
gives you hope right now about the future of nonprofit leadership?
Oh, there's a lot of hope. There's so many young people coming up through the ranks, and when I think about especially social services, because that's the world I've been in now for 11 years. Um, to see young people coming in and being so connected to the mission and not so much focused on their own career, to
Mm,
me is very hopeful. So I think about the two young women that are in development and how connected they are to the mission, and to see how the women here connect with them because they're similar in age. And it's not like I'm a better than you. It's there's compassion for who we serve, and then there's kind of a wow, I like here's somebody that's my age and I see what they do. I don't know, it's kind of magical. And so to see that, because I think when you're younger, we're trying to prepare our careers, right, and get to that next place. And when you're in the nonprofit space, it feels different. And so to be able to see that and watch that grow, and again, not just from our development team, but from our house moms and our case managers, just their commitment to the mission and who we serve, it gives me nothing but great hope.
well, if you could leave nonprofit leaders with one final thought about leadership and relationships, what would that be?
First of all, know yourself and be confident in who you are and be willing to be vulnerable.
Perfect. Well, Lisa, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and perspective with us today. I think this conversation is an important reminder that leadership is ultimately about people. Organizations become healthier, cultures become stronger, fundraising becomes more effective, and missions advance further when leaders invest deeply and authentically in relationships. So thank you for the work you do through Casa Teresa and for the thoughtful leadership you continue to provide. And thank you to everyone for listening to Lead for Good today. In today's conversation, we talked about a lot of issues that probably meant something to you. And if there was something that encouraged you or challenged you or resonated with you, I'd love for you to like and subscribe to this podcast and share it with others who might benefit from hearing today's podcast episode. And until next time, just remember our encouragement to always lead for good. See you all very soon.
Thank you for joining us for this most recent episode of Lead for Good. Our passion is helping nonprofit leaders reach their full potential as leaders, and we sincerely hope this episode has been edifying for you. Please subscribe to this podcast to not miss any of our Lead for Good conversations. We welcome your feedback, suggestions, and comments via email at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Lead for Good is a production of Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership. Please visit us on the web at www.fulcrumleader.com. Until next time, we wish you all the best and encourage you to always lead for good.